Oh, Councilmember Olson.
Here.
Councilmember Armstrong.
Here.
Councilmember McDermott.
Here.
Under remarks tonight, we have with us from the Steuben County Trails, John Longenecker and Jennifer Sharkey. The Steuben County Trails has worked for several years now to promote and advocate and assist with trail development and expansion in Steuben County. The City of Angola was recently submitted an application for trail construction to the DNR's Next Level Trail Grant. And the grant application was the result of a partnership between the City of Angola, Steuben County, and the Steuben County Trails. There's a little more here I can tell you, but I'll ask whoever the spokesperson is to step up and tell us the rest of the story.
It'll be me. We are really excited to be here with you guys. We're excited about what's going on. We've partnered. Amanda's been a great partner with us, working with the trails and so on, as well as the city. But she's been a great input, a lot of wisdom and so on. And with that, we, as the trails board, we realized it was the DNR recommended we no longer be involved in the Next Level Trails grant as far as the county goes, the county portion of it. And with that, we had wanted to, we both hired the same firm. We had decided to hire BF&S to do our grant application process. Amanda informed us that the city had also, as a trails board, since our core shifted from managing and trying to bring the trail, do that part of it, the physical part of it, to more, now we're just still being an advocate. We're going to be out there. Of course, we just are finishing up a master plan for the county trails and so on, which is really awesome. It's never had a fully complete, great plan. So we're excited about that. But with that, there's $4,200 that each grant application costs. So the county, we presented a check today to the county for $4,200 to pay for their grant application process. And we want to do the same for the city of Angola as the Steuben County Trails. We want to show that the partnership is true and that it's full of integrity, that it's not a matter of what we can show and do, just about showing up, but we want to be a part. We want to be an active part. And Angola has been a great, when you look at what the city's done, there's a lot of cities that aren't where we're at with trails and not moving forward. They're not seeing the vision of what the trail can be and how much it's going to impact our city. And so we, again, want to present this check. I'm going to hand it to Amanda, if that's okay.
Yeah,
We want to thank you, and I give you guys applause for being forward thinking and being visionary and moving forward with the trails. And I can't help but be encouraged. It's really it's awesome to see what Angola is more of a vacation or a destination, and it's been that way for a long time, but now it's becoming more vibrant and more widespread and more expansive in what its destination is. And that's the exciting part of it. So thank you folks for being a part of it.
Well, thank you. John and Jennifer, we do appreciate that partnership and the work you guys have done to help get us to where we're at. And yes, we are planning on doing more, and we look forward to partnering with you and the county and anyone else that's interested in moving our trails forward, because it is a real asset to our community. Plus the fact now we'll be getting ours done to the south there and start going toward Avashi and State Park down in Bluffton, and that'll attract even more here.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Request approval of the July 17th and 26th minutes. Move second to discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Under unfinished business, ordinance number 1735-2023, an ordinance fixing compensation of appointed officers, deputies, and other employees and of police and firefighters of the city of Angola, Indiana for the year 2024. Third reading.
Second.
Seconded. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carried. Ordinance number 1736-2023, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Angola, Indiana, Sheets Family Park, second reading.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion is carried. Ordinance 1737-2023, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Angola, Indiana, and village of Glendarren, second reading. Move to approve.
Second.
Move and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Ordinance 1737-2023, third reading. Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Under new business, ordinance number 1738-2023, an ordinance fixing the compensation of elected officials of the city of Angola, Indiana for the year 2024, first reading.
Move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Resolution number 2023-8-851, resolution approving the transfer of personal property for no consideration to the town of Orland for attachment.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Now the part you've all been sitting on the edge of your chairs.
Can we get a drum roll, please?
Jeff Ralph from Baker Tilly is going to present the water utility and wastewater utility financial management reports. Jeff, welcome. Appreciate you coming tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Appreciate the opportunity. Just wanted to present the results of the financial management reports for both utilities. Obviously, happy to entertain any questions, discussion that you have this evening. I think I might go ahead and start with the water utility. I have that one in front of me, and we'll kind of start there, and then we'll move on to the wastewater. But like the previous reports we've done every year for the utilities, what we do is we look at report on the historical financials. So how the utility operated, the results of the operations for, this would have been 2022 now, actual to budget. We also look at the cash position of each utility to sort of assess the strengths of the cash position. And then maybe most importantly, we look at projecting ahead over the next 5 years based on certain assumptions provided by the city in terms of spending plans to assess whether it looks like rates would be adequate or inadequate going forward. So with that on the water utility, in terms of cash position, and I'm just going to touch on a few pages here, kind of flipping back and forth, but page 6, if you're following along, reflects the fund balances just within the water utility at the end of the year. So you can see that at the end of the year, the utility had just under $3.3 million of cash. That's the first column that's shown there. And then what we did is we compared those to those actual cash balances to what the bond ordinance requires in terms of minimum reserves that should be kept on hand at any point in time. That's the middle column. You can see in total that number is about 1.5 million. So the far right column shows that variance. So all in all, the utility at the end of the year had about $1.7 million more than what those minimum cash reserve levels are or were. So that's good news. We're able to meet certainly meet the minimum cash reserves, which and a little bit extra, which we would want to see, hoping that the utility would have funds for ongoing future capital needs, and you're building on those funds year over year. So in terms of performance during 2022, page 7, We start with the operating revenues. And during 2022, the utility collected, starting up at the top, about $1.95 million during the year. The budget anticipated $1.912 million. So actual revenues came in a little bit ahead of budget by about 2%. The next set of numbers down and continuing on to page 8 and then on to page 9 reflect the operating expenses actual to budget. So in the middle part of page 9, the total operating expenses came in at $1.6 million, and the budgeted operating expenses were $1.75 million. So the utility underspent compared to budget by about $157,000 or 9% below budget. I think the other notable item here on page 9 is under the capital improvements line item you see there, kind of down towards the bottom. There's $285,000 budgeted for the year for capital replacements, and the utility only spent about $43,000 or so. So spending quite a bit under budget in terms of compared to the capital plan during 2022. So all in all, the utility actually made about $82,000 during the year. So brought in about $82,000 more than what was actually spent. The 2022 budget anticipated a shortfall of $349,000. So the utility performed very well compared to budget by about $431,000. So that's obviously good news. We're anticipating some potential shortfalls there in 2022, and that didn't occur. So one thing I would point out, and we'll talk about this here and a little bit more here in a minute, but and I think we talked about this last year, like maybe the last couple of years, but the budgets that are prepared are, and this is not unusual, but fairly conservative, meaning we're budgeting more than kind of what we would expect to actually spend. So I think we're seeing that play out year over year where, when we're preparing these reports, we're utilizing the budget, which is higher than what we expect to spend. So it's not unusual that at the end of the year we come back with a positive variance. So all that's good. One thing we'll want to, look closely though, if and when it comes time to adjust rates, we'll want to make sure that we're focusing on what those actual expenditures are, just so that we're not overestimating what potential rate adjustments are needed at that point. Okay, so I'm gonna. That's really just a quick overview of what happened in 2022. I'm going to kind of focus. I'm going to go back to page 4, which is a general overview of what we just kind of talked about, current cash position. More importantly, what do things look like over the next 5 years or so? A couple things that are a driving factor here you want to keep in mind. Obviously, inflation. We're all very aware of that. We've seen inflation as high as 9% within the last 2 years. I know that's come down, thankfully, closer to around 3% right now. But obviously, that has had some impact, and will likely continue to have some impact until inflation slows. So that is certainly one driving factor. I would say the primary driving factor, for both utilities, really are the increases in operating expenses year over year. But even more importantly than that, the capital improvement plan for the next 5 years. So back in 2019, when we last looked at rates and adjusted rates, the capital improvement budget has gone up substantially since then. So obviously there have been needs that have been identified, aging infrastructure and things that the city is focusing on more now, so that we're seeing a much higher allowance needed each year for capital improvements. So that is really a primary driving factor. So when we looked at projecting out revenues, projecting out operating expenses, projecting out those future capital needs, what we're finding is that over that 5-year period, if the city actually spends what the city is anticipating, or at least has identified in terms of capital needs, we would see shortfalls pretty much every year. And that, again, that's being driven by the spending or the capital spending plan, which over that 5-year period would draw cash balances down by about $4.3 million, or between $800,000 and $900,000 per year. So again, as I mentioned, we've seen increases in operation and maintenance since 2019, and we've also seen an increase in the need for capital projects or capital improvements during that same period. A couple things to, I guess, keep in mind, consider as we move forward. Again, one of the main driving factor will be capital. So certainly the timing of those capital needs will be important in terms of what kind of rate adjustment may be considered or may be needed, but also the funding sources for those projects. What we've looked at within this report is we've assumed that the city would approach those capital needs on a pay-go basis, meaning the city would pay for all those capital expenditures through just the rates and charges that are coming in. Certainly, the city could look at potential alternative funding sources. It could be, looking at other funds, other departments within the city for available funds, kind of tap into some of those revenues that are outside the utilities. But also bonding would be another option as well, given the extent of those capital needs in terms of dollars. So really, there's various factors here that will drive the utility forward and the decisions that will need to be made over the next several years in terms of rates. So that's really just a quick recap on the water utility side. So any questions I can answer at this point? I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers out there.
I'm sorry, is it Jeff?
Yes.
I didn't hear the year that you project shortfalls.
Yep. So what we're looking at, what we're projecting over the next 5 years in terms of shortfalls, we would be, again, assuming that we spend exactly what the city has identified in terms of capital, that it would be a shortfall every year for the next 5 years.
Beginning in 24?
Beginning in 2023.
Okay.
This year, yes. Yeah. Certainly, as we started out the discussion, given the current cash position, the utility does have a strong cash position, so the utility could absorb some of those shortfalls. Certainly wouldn't want to go too long, beyond, say, another year before I think a rate adjustment would be considered.
But that rate adjustment would probably be substantial.
It would be substantial. Again, I think worst case scenario, without tapping into other city funds or looking at issuance of debt, we'd be looking at somewhere around 45% adjustment to meet those, again, primarily meeting those capital needs. If we're looking at bonding for a good portion of those projects, probably looking somewhere in the 25 to 30% increase range.
Mayor, when are they going to start redoing North Main Street?
2026?
Yeah, that's what I thought, 26.
The only question I'm having is if we're gonna to do the North Wayne Street main replacement, that part of that project?
We're getting, yeah,
Yes,
we're getting some help from NDOT on that too, aren't we?
not for the water main. The water main's 100% our
Oh.
cost. The sidewalk,
I guess my question is that if we're gonna they're gonna pair up Wayne Street, wouldn't that be the time to
it
do
is part
the,
of that project.
do Wayne replacement?
Yes, it will be done with the project at our
At our
cost.
cost. So we're accumulating money till then to pay for that.
Well, I think that-
Right now, it's on the, I'm assuming, their capital project plan. If it's not gonna be replaced for a couple of years, when they tear up Wayne Street,
Correct.
It-
are we accumulating, are we accumulating cash in order to pay for that project in 2 years, or what? That's what it looks like.
Yeah, so I think the question or the answer to that question depends on the funding source. So if we're looking at cash flowing all these capital improvements, then I think the answer would be yes, we would need to be setting, or the utility would need to be setting aside money starting here pretty soon. So you'd have those dollars to be able to put towards that project. You know, if we're looking at bonding, then the answer may be no. You may not have to have all that cash on hand to be able to do the project. And that project is reflected, and I didn't go over this, but on page 15, there's a list of those estimated capital improvements by year. And we did build in, so the engineering piece of the North Wayne Water Main project was projected in 2026, which is 180,000. And then we were showing the actual replacement project rolling on in 2027 in the amount of 1.5.
Just quick math in my head, it looks to me like he's gonna start deficit spending this year to the tune of about 20% of the rates. Is it kind of
Correct.
off the top of my head is what it looks like to me, which coincidentally is fairly close to the decrease we made in rates a couple of years ago. When we did the cost of service, we cut rates, actually a little bit more than that, probably. That's it, we should not have done that. We did. Yeah. But we're gonna need to do a rate increase here pretty quick just to break even just this year. We need to start doing some long-range forecasting. Tom, you fairly confident in your CapEx spending forecast?
Yeah, so we can't keep pushing it off like we did discussed earlier. It needs to
You
be,
think we're just gonna compound our problems if we start pushing some of the projects back a little bit?
it'll only cost more later.
I wouldn't argue that.
One thing I did mention too, but I think it's worth mentioning as we're projecting out in the future, the utilities debt, a portion of the utilities debt will be rolling off in 2027, which will free up about $170,000 per year. We've taken that into account here in our projections. But I guess one reason I point that out is if those needs are imminent, those capital needs are imminent, and we're looking to potentially minimize, or not minimize, but reduce some of the increase, we could look at the issuance of bonds. Because some of that, we could fit some of that debt service into that $170,000. It's going to be freed up here in the next few years. So there would be some room to fill in some debt service and spread those costs over a longer period of time. And that would help reduce some of the impact, certainly not
You
all
want
of
to
it.
backload basically this bond issue. In round numbers, what are you thinking for a bond issue and timing wise?
Yeah, so we looked at a bond issue of about $2.7 million in 2020. So that would cover 2025 and 2027.
And what year?
We looked at around 2025.
25?
About 2.7. And that does include, I believe, the North Wayne Street main replacement. And that's probably the majority. That's actually the majority. That along with the painting of the Calvary Tower, the outside of Calvary Tower.
What's the bond market look like right now in terms of rates?
Historically, they're still low, but they are, they have crept up a little. Just to give some ballpark, 20-year bond right now, open market somewhere around 4%. Could be a little bit better than that based on credit, but around 4% is about where we're at right now.
Tom, what's the lifespan of paint jobs on the towers off? You have to do that exteriors?
Exterior's basically cosmetic. Interior's the important part. That's what we
Yeah.
need, but
Yeah, but you're talking about exterior.
both.
Oh,
The number we're looking at is
What's the
interior,
lifespan?
exterior, 20 years.
Okay.
But it's, the interior is more than anything, but to do the interior, then go back later to do the exteriors, sort of redundant because you have to drain it anyways. So cost wise, it'd be better to do inside and out and bring it all up to OSHA and cathodic. There's a lot of things going on with that number. It's not just a paint job.
Yeah, but the lifespan is about 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, good news today. Yeah.
I wish I had better news. Any other questions or thoughts on water?
Accumulate some cash to pay for it.
Well, you do that. If you did a bond issue, basically you invest it and sure what Ryan's doing on the CDs right now, but the net loss wouldn't be all that great. We can borrow tax free, but we can invest post tax, so that the numbers get fairly close.
I'd rather have that money there. You have to do that in case.
Yeah.
In case something else happens.
But we're also, I'm sure we're gonna pursue some kind of grant money to do look at all different kinds of ways to pay for that. And $1.5 million today, and when we do it in several years, it might be 1.7 or 1.8.
If we're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
You can find a granddaughter.
I'll do my best.
I like it.
Yeah, it's it's likely to be a pretty heavy lift, pretty big challenge to be able to cash flow, the capital plan without looking at, some sort of alternative funding or bonding.
The key's that North Wayne Street.
Yeah. And, as was mentioned, I mean, with CDs, interest rates now, or even aside from that, was a big proponent of like to have cash on hand, right? Because things break and it can be very expensive very quickly. So
Ryan, here the estimate, what are current CD rates? Current CD rates?
just my own personal banking experience, 4.25% right now for 11 months.
Okay.
That's just anecdotal, but
Well, if you can borrow it for and you invest it 4.25%.
Or Jerry goes and gambles and check for us.
No, you don't want that to happen.
Bond. I check.
Be serious about it.
okay. All right, so that was water.
If we decide to bond projects, and then the potential rate increase is still 25%.
Yeah, I think we estimated somewhere around 25-30%,
25%.
even with the bonding.
Okay.
You need to do at least 20 just to get back break even.
Right, so
Okay, wastewater. Starting on page 6, and just kind of looking quickly here at the cash position. The utility had about $3.5 million of cash on hand. Required and recommended minimum reserves of about 2.3. So the utility had roughly almost $1.2 million of funds above those minimum reserve requirements. So Good, again, a good, strong cash position. As we're on that page, I'm just looking down, I see, just a reminder, wastewater utility does have two series of bonds outstanding. One is the 2010 A bonds and another one is the 2010 B bonds. And the 2010 A bonds are actually going to be paid off January of 2024. So that'll free up about $130,000 per year within the utility. The 2010 B bonds will be out there until 2030, still another 6 years to go on that series. Page 7, actual budget. Again, very similar trends here compared to the water utility. About $3 million came in operating revenues, which was pretty close to budget, about $50,000 higher than budget, but pretty much right on target. Operating expenses in total on page 9 came in at just under 2 million, so 1,978,000, which was about 7-8% below budget, about $165,000 below budget. And in terms of capital, the 2022 budget assumed $982,000 of capital. The utility only spent $409,000, so almost $600,000 underspend in terms of capital replacements. So all in all, the utility brought in, or actually had an increase in cash, net increase in cash of about $466,000 for the year. So similar to water, there's a pretty substantial capital improvement plan, which is reflected on page 15. Again, this is really the primary driving factor behind what's driving the financial results here, but about $6.5 million in total capital needs over the next 5 years. So dividing that just on average year over year, that's about $1.2 million each year for capital. So in terms of looking ahead, again, we're projecting decreases in cash year over year. On average, roughly $765,000 per year. In total, about $3.8 million spent down of cash over the next 5 years without any adjustment or adjustment to spending plan. Already mentioned the 2010 A bonds that are going to be rolling off. Again, that'll free up about $130,000 each year going forward. But even aside from that, we're looking at that. Those numbers are incorporated into the projected negative cash flows. So in terms of rate adjustment, we're looking at roughly 28%, call it 30% around it. And if we were to just cash flow those capital needs, $1.2 million per year. If we're looking at bonding for a portion of those, and we've assumed about $3.1 million bond issue, we could almost eliminate the need for the rate adjustment. Now, I think there would still be some adjustment needed, if nothing else, to keep up with inflationary increases and so forth. But really the driving factor is the capital. So if we're able to spread those capital costs over, say, 20 years versus only 5 years, that would really help kind of keep that rate adjustment down quite a bit.
Well, since this is my last one, we'll be going through Baker till he comes and tells us every year. Look forward to what's going on. And Deb and I over the years, which all the previous clerk treasurer and Ryan feels the same way. We need to be looking at these every year. If we can do a 2 to 5%, if we can get to the point we can do a 2 to 5%, it doesn't hurt people for the most part. But when we start talking, I think we went from about 5% 3 or 4 years ago, and then last year they said we looking at 10 to 20%, and now we're looking 25. What'd you say, 40 at the max, maybe 35? That's when people get hurt. That's when industries get hurt that use a lot of water. That's when schools and county government and all of them that use a lot of water, that's when they sit up and take real notice and creates a hardship because they're doing the same things we are now, trying to figure out our budget for next year. And they don't know something like this might be coming or not. So I just encourage you, those that will still be here next year, and those of you that are looking to come on next year, each year listen to Baker and Tilly and see if we need to do it. We don't do it if we don't need it, but if we need like a 2 to 5%, you're not going to get any phone calls. You get a 25 to 35%, the whole town's going to be upset. That's just the way it is. That's just the nature. And so I know nobody likes to raise rates, but I sure as heck like raising them 2 to 5% compared to 25%. So just throwing that out there as my last hurrah. Anybody have any other questions? We appreciate this, Jeff. We will take this under advisement and we'll be doing something. It looks like we don't have a choice, especially on the water side, but we do. We have a lot of old infrastructure. The guys have been doing a great job in doing what they can and coming up with surprises every year that we aren't expecting. And yeah, Tommy,
I just wanted to sort of summarize. I had Ryan sort of punch up because I didn't know the last time we had a water rate increase. And it was 2015. So it was 8 years that we have not done anything but 23% decrease. So if you look at the minimum bill for a 5/8 water meter, we're charging what we charged in 2007. So if we have customers or ratepayers who I try to always look out for, is that we really haven't done a lot on the water side of it and pushing that up. I mean, we got ourselves a little bit of a pickle right now, but when I start getting the phone calls, I'm going to, show them this and say, we've done the best we can. And we've always done, like you said, small rate increases, not a big gap, but I know things have changed in my expenses at home since 2007. I think it's pretty justified that the customer's going to realize that we need to do something. That's all I got.
And maybe just to add to that, and I didn't share this earlier, but I know sometimes folks are interested in how the rates compare to other communities around the state of similar size. And maybe you're already aware of this, but on the water side, actually right about average, maybe slightly higher, but right around average in terms of residential bill. On the sewer side, actually quite a bit lower than the state average. So by about $6 or so. So just to kind of give everyone some context in terms of how you compare to other communities, really fare pretty well compared to some of those other communities.
yeah. The thing is, I don't remember getting one phone call, maybe you do, Tom, when we had that decrease.
Right?
But man, when that increase starts getting too high, it just rings off. Well, it doesn't ring off mine. It goes into these folks here that they take care of all that. I know you appreciate the
Sure do.
interactions.
Yep. They're lovely.
So anyway, please keep that in mind in the future. It'll make our customers' lives and our lives a lot easier. And thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you. Appreciate your time as always.
No, I appreciate you coming over, making that long trip and bringing such good news to us.
Except you failed 2 weeks ago. You ran the door and then you took one look at the crowd. You said,
I chickened out.
That's okay. We all felt the same way. We just couldn't do it.
All right. Well, thanks everyone.
Okay, thank you. So we will discuss this. Get Ryan, do some talking with him and Tom.
Yeah, we need to get Ryan back on board with some of this.
Okay. Reports for treasurer. Anything? Nothing? Kim?
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Jan?
I'd just like to thank everyone for participating in the master plan. The report, the preliminary report, we'll put available online here soon. Trine is submitting for that $25 million grant. Their deadline is September 1st. Angola Arts Fest went really well this weekend downtown. I just want to thank the street department. The street department for helping with setup as well as public safety during the event as well. Trine Fest will be August 24th. We'll see what they all have in store for us. Next week, we will hear about the Preserving Main Street grant. We're scheduled for a call to go over how we scored. And that's the $2 million grant. And then the sculptures for downtown, the fall installation, we've kicked off that call to artists. And finally, the early childhood task force, Mayor, that you have really championed getting started. We have put more work on Carmen at the Community Foundation, and she's really taking over putting together the connections that need to happen locally as the state and really the region starts putting together those connections legislatively to put together a whole regional task force. So those are all my updates.
Well, Jennifer, to be quite honest, the more meetings I go to, the more I hear your name popping up. If you've taken this on, you've taken that on, and we appreciate that because we need to get something done there. We've been talking about this for 20 years. And you guys are moving it forward very well. Appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah.
I just want to report, as you guys probably know, the wastewater plant took a direct lightning bolt 26th of July. So that's the reason I can't get information out for CSOs and rain events and stuff right now. We got most of it back up working, but still missing 4 meters and a pump panel. And we got the raw panel working.
No report, Mayor.
Matt?
No report, Mayor.
When's the next music in the park?
August 18th.
18th. So week from Friday? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Chief?
No report.
Amanda?
Just to kind of expand upon your trails presentation. So we did apply for Next Level Trails for finishing up the design and then construction of the trail from Commons Park to our south city limits. It was a $2 million grant. Then we also applied for community crossings for some street improvements. That was just over $1 million we applied for. And current construction out there, Shire Drive, John Street, and soon to be South Wayne and some other streets. So trying to get that wrapped up this construction season. That's it.
Yeah. Chief?
I have nothing, sir.
None. Is there any other? Whoops. We gotta spend money. Press approval of the allowance of accounts payable voucher 64,049 through 64,337 for $963,327.13.
Well, we pay the bills.
Second. Moving second of discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Is there any other new business anybody needs to bring up? Going once, going twice. So the next common council meeting is Monday, August 20th. Thank you all.